May 4th, 2007. National Weather Service meteorologist Jason Gosselin sits in the Dodge City, Kansas forecast office, watching radar returns with mounting concern. A supercell thunderstorm has been tracking across south-central Kansas for over an hour, and the velocity signature, the radar indication of rotation, is unlike anything he has seen in his career. The couplet on his screen shows wind speeds changing by over 100 miles per hour across just a few hundred yards, indicating violent rotation. He has already issued multiple tornado warnings, but this storm keeps intensifying. At 9:45 p.m., he types out another warning, using language he has never used before. Tornado emergency for the town of Greensburg, Kansas. A large, extremely dangerous tornado is heading directly for the town. This is a life-threatening situation. If you are in Greensburg, take cover immediately in the lowest level of a sturdy building. Within minutes, an EF5 tornado, the first ever officially rated under the new Enhanced Fujita Scale, will wipe the town of Greensburg, Kansas, off the map. 11 people will die. 95% of the town will be destroyed, and the way we rate tornadoes will be forever changed. To understand how this catastrophic tornado came to be, we need to rewind 48 hours. It is May 2nd, 2007, and meteorologists at the Storm Prediction Center are monitoring a severe weather pattern developing across the Central Plains that is raising serious red flags. A deep upper-level trough is moving out of the Rockies, bringing strong jet stream winds and creating widespread lift across Kansas and Oklahoma. At the surface, a powerful low-pressure system is rapidly deepening over the Texas Panhandle, drawing abundant Gulf of Mexico moisture northward. By May 3rd, dew points across Kansas are climbing into the mid to upper 60s. Very humid air for early May, while surface temperatures are reaching into the 80s under partly cloudy skies. This combination is generating significant atmospheric instability. Convective available potential energy values are forecast to reach 3,000 to 4,000 joules per kilogram across south-central Kansas, plenty of fuel for intense supercells. But what has forecasters most concerned is the wind shear profile. Surface winds are forecast to blow from the south-southeast at 25 to 35 miles per hour, unusually strong low-level winds. At mid-levels, winds will veer to the southwest at 60 miles per hour. At jet stream level, winds are expected to reach 130 miles per hour from the west-southwest. This creates extreme speed shear and very strong directional shear, textbook conditions for violent tornadoes. There is another factor that makes this setup particularly nighttime dangerous: the timing. Storms are expected to fire in the late afternoon and continue into the night. Nighttime tornadoes are statistically more deadly than daytime ones because people cannot see them coming. Warnings are more likely to be missed by sleeping residents, and the psychological barrier to taking action is higher when it means getting out of bed. The Storm Prediction Center issues a moderate risk for severe weather across Kansas and Oklahoma for May 4th, with explicit mention of the potential for strong tornadoes continuing well after dark. But May 4th, 2007 has another significance that few outside the meteorological community fully appreciate. This was the first day that the new Enhanced Fujita Scale was officially in use for rating tornadoes. For nearly 35 years, tornadoes had been rated using the original Fujita Scale, developed by Dr. Ted Fujita in 1971. But that scale had limitations. It was based on limited engineering research, used vague damage descriptions, and often produced inconsistent ratings. After years of research involving meteorologists, engineers, and wind scientists, an enhanced version was developed with more precise damage indicators, better engineering data, and clearer rating guidelines. February 1st, 2007 was the official implementation date. Any tornado occurring after that date would be rated using the new Enhanced Fujita Scale. By late afternoon on May 4th, the atmosphere across Kansas is loaded and ready. A dry line, the boundary between dry air from the west and humid Gulf air from the east, has set up across south-central Kansas, providing a focus for storm initiation. Around 6:30 p.m. Central Time, the first thunderstorms of the evening begin erupting along the dry line in Pratt and Kiowa counties. One storm in particular, developing near the town of Protection, rapidly organizes into a classic supercell. Weather radar shows a pronounced hook echo, the telltale signature of rotation, and strong velocity couplets indicating the storm is producing powerful rotation aloft. At 7:05 p.m., the National Weather Service office in Dodge City issues a tornado warning for the supercell as it tracks northeast toward the towns of Pratt and Greensburg. Storm chasers in the area report a large, rotating wall cloud, and they note that the storm structure is impressive, a tall, striated updraft tower with clear inflow bands. At 7:25 p.m., approximately 8 miles southwest of Pratt, the first tornado touches down. It starts relatively weak, rated EF5, causing minor damage to trees and power lines as it tracks northeast. The tornado remains on the ground for about 12 minutes before dissipating south of Pratt around 7:37 p.m. But the supercell isn't finished, not even close. Its mesocyclone remains incredibly strong, and atmospheric conditions are only becoming more favorable as evening transitions to night. The storm continues tracking northeast, and forecasters watching radar can see the velocity signature intensifying. At 8:55 p.m., the storm produces a second tornado near the small community of Hopewell. This one is stronger, EF1 intensity, and causes damage to several rural structures and farms. It remains on the ground for approximately 10 minutes before lifting around 9:05 p.m. After the second tornado dissipates, the supercell undergoes a period of rapid intensification. The entire mesocyclone tightens and lowers toward the ground. The storm's base becomes incredibly low and expansive, with powerful inflow rushing into the storm from all directions. Radar velocity signatures show rotation intensifying to extreme levels, wind speeds changing by over 120 miles per hour across just a few hundred yards. At the National Weather Service office in Dodge City, meteorologists recognize they are looking at a particularly dangerous situation. The storm is heading directly for Greensburg, Kansas, a town of approximately 1,400 people located in Kiowa County. Greensburg is a quintessential small Kansas farming town. Main Street is lined with locally owned businesses, a grocery store, hardware store, bank, and a few restaurants. Residential streets spread out in neat grids filled with single-family homes, many built decades ago. The town has a strong sense of community, anchored by churches, schools, and civic organizations. It is also known for the world's largest hand-dug well, a tourist attraction in the center of town. On this Friday evening, many residents are home for the night, settling in after a long work week. Some are aware severe weather is possible. Tornado warnings have been in effect on and off all evening, but violent tornadoes are relatively rare in this part of Kansas. Most people are not particularly alarmed. At 9:45 p.m., that changes. The National Weather Service issues a tornado emergency for Greensburg, their most urgent warning level, reserved only for situations where a violent tornado is bearing down on a populated area. The warning text is stark and direct. A large and extremely dangerous tornado is approaching Greensburg. This is a life-threatening situation. If you are in Greensburg, take shelter now in the lowest level of a sturdy building, away from windows. Tornado sirens begin wailing across town. Local radio stations broadcast urgent warnings. But it is Friday night. It is dark outside, and many residents are already in bed or preparing for bed. The urgency does not fully register for everyone. At 9:45 p.m., approximately 1 mile west-southwest of Greensburg, a massive wedge tornado touches down. Within seconds, it is already on the ground and rapidly intensifying. The condensation funnel is barely visible in the darkness. Witnesses describe seeing occasional lightning illuminating a massive, churning mass, but its roar is unmistakable. Survivors describe it as sounding like a continuous freight train, punctuated by explosive crashes as structures fail. The tornado is moving northeast at approximately 30 miles per hour, heading directly for the heart of Greensburg. At 9:47 p.m., the tornado enters the southwestern edge of town, and in an instant, it reaches maximum intensity, EF5, with estimated winds between 205 and 210 miles per hour. This is the moment that will make history, the first tornado ever officially rated EF5 under the new Enhanced Fujita Scale. The destruction is immediate and total. Well-built homes are ripped apart, with walls collapsing and roofs torn away and thrown hundreds of yards. But it is the complete destruction that defines EF5 damage. At multiple locations across Greensburg, well-anchored, well-built homes are swept completely off their foundations. Not just heavily damaged, swept away, with anchor bolts removed, debris granulated into small fragments, and nothing left but bare concrete slabs. This is the damage threshold that separates EF4 from EF5, and it is occurring across multiple locations in town. The tornado's path cuts directly through the center of Greensburg, impacting virtually every part of town. The business district along Main Street is obliterated. Brick buildings that have stood for over a century collapse into rubble. The town's courthouse, a substantial masonry structure, is severely damaged, with portions of walls collapsing and the roof torn away. The high school is destroyed, with large sections of the building reduced to piles of brick and twisted metal. The elementary school suffers similar devastation. Churches throughout town, traditionally some of the sturdiest structures in small Kansas towns, are demolished. In residential areas, the destruction is even more complete. Block after block of homes simply ceases to exist. Where houses once stood, only bare foundations remain, swept so clean they appear power-washed. Trees throughout town are not just knocked down, but debarked, debranched, and in many cases pulled completely from the ground, leaving gaping craters. The tornado is literally scouring the ground, digging into the earth, and removing topsoil in places. Vehicles are picked up and thrown extraordinary distances. Cars are found blocks away from where they were parked, crushed into unrecognizable balls of metal. One pickup truck is discovered over a quarter-mile from its original location, wrapped around a tree and compressed to half its original size. The town's iconic landmark, the Big Well, the world's largest hand-dug well, survives structurally, but the gift shop and museum surrounding it are completely destroyed. The well's survival becomes almost symbolic, a lone remnant of what Greensburg once was, standing amid total devastation. The town's grain elevator, visible for miles across the flat Kansas landscape, is severely damaged with large sections torn away. The water tower, remarkably, remains standing, though it is damaged and will later need to be demolished. But amid this catalog of destruction, the human toll is what matters most. 11 people lose their lives in Greensburg that night. Several die in their homes as structures collapse around them. The EF5 winds are so powerful that even well-built homes offer limited protection. When walls fail and roofs collapse, survival becomes a matter of being in exactly the right spot. One elderly couple dies together in their home on the north side of town. A mother and her young daughter are killed when their house is swept away. Other victims are found in the rubble of homes that were reduced to bare slabs. Approximately 60 people are injured, many critically. In the immediate aftermath, survivors emerge into a scene of total darkness and devastation. Power is out across the entire town. The tornado has destroyed virtually every utility line. Natural gas leaks create fire hazards amid the rubble. Survivors wander through debris-strewn streets, calling out for family members and neighbors, trying to determine who survived and who did not. The scale of destruction is so complete that it is difficult to orient. Familiar landmarks are gone. Streets are unrecognizable beneath debris. Entire neighborhoods have been erased. Emergency responders begin arriving within 30 minutes of the tornado, but what they encounter is overwhelming. Greensburg no longer exists as a functional town. Of approximately 650 structures in town, over 95% are damaged or destroyed. The majority, around 60%, are completely destroyed, reduced to bare slabs or piles of rubble. The remaining structures are so heavily damaged they are uninhabitable. The high school, elementary school, courthouse, hospital, fire station, police station, all the critical infrastructure of the town are destroyed or severely damaged. Every business on Main Street is gone. Residential neighborhoods are unrecognizable wastelands of debris. Search and rescue operations begin immediately, with teams from across Kansas and neighboring states converging on Greensburg. In the darkness, using flashlights and searchlights from emergency vehicles, rescuers search through rubble for survivors and victims. The work is dangerous, unstable structures, ruptured gas lines, debris everywhere. Throughout the night and into the next day, they methodically search every property, marking buildings as searched. The final death toll, 11, is remarkable in its relative lowness, given the scale of destruction. That more did not die is attributed to several factors. The tornado warnings issued well before impact, the fact that many homes had basements where residents could shelter, and perhaps some measure of fortune. In the days following the tornado, the full extent of the devastation becomes clear in daylight. Aerial photographs show a town simply erased, block after block of bare foundations, scattered debris, and denuded earth. The damage path is clearly visible from the air, a scar cutting directly through the center of town. Kansas Governor Kathleen Sebelius tours the damage and describes it as total devastation as far as the eye can see. President George W. Bush visits on May 9th, walking through the rubble with survivors and local officials. Federal disaster assistance is quickly approved, though the question on everyone's mind is stark. Can a town this small, this completely destroyed, rebuild? For the meteorological and engineering communities, the Greensburg tornado represents a watershed moment. This was the first EF5 rating ever issued under the new Enhanced Fujita Scale, making it a test case for the new system. Damage survey teams from the National Weather Service spent weeks in Greensburg, carefully documenting every aspect of the destruction. They used the new EF scale damage indicators, 28 different types of structures and objects, each with multiple degrees of damage, to build a comprehensive picture of the tornado's intensity. The survey confirmed multiple instances of the most extreme damage indicators. Well-built homes were swept cleanly from foundations, with anchor bolts removed, and that counted as an EF5 indicator. Ground scouring that removed topsoil and exposed subsoil was also an EF5 indicator. Vehicles thrown more than 500 feet and crushed beyond recognition were an EF5 indicator. Large trees completely debarked and stripped of all branches were EF4 to EF5 indicators. Engineering analysis concluded that winds in the core of the tornado reached 205 to 210 miles per hour based on the damage observed. The official rating was EF5, with a maximum path width of 1.7 miles and a total path length of 22 miles. This EF5 rating carried particular significance. Under the old Fujita scale, F5 ratings had become increasingly rare. Only one had been issued in the 8 years between 1999 and 2007. Some researchers speculated that improved construction and more conservative rating practices were making F5 ratings less common, even if tornado intensity had not actually decreased. The new Enhanced Fujita Scale, with more precise damage indicators and a stronger engineering foundation, was designed to address those concerns. The Greensburg EF5 confirms that the new scale can still identify the most extreme tornadoes, while providing more consistent and defensible ratings. The tornado also highlights the ongoing challenges of nighttime tornadoes. Despite warning lead times of over 30 minutes, Greensburg was under a tornado warning for almost 45 minutes before the tornado struck. 11 people still died. The darkness, the difficulty of seeing the tornado approach, and the tendency for people to be less alert at night all contributed to the toll. This reality has led to continued emphasis on encouraging people to have multiple ways of receiving warnings, including weather radios that can wake them at night. For Greensburg, the question of whether to rebuild dominated the initial weeks after the tornado. With 95% of the town destroyed and a population of 1,400, the economic and logistical challenges were immense. Some residents, particularly elderly ones, took insurance settlements and moved elsewhere, unable to face starting over. But a core group decided not just to rebuild, but to rebuild better. Greensburg embraced an ambitious vision to reconstruct as one of the greenest and most sustainable towns in America. The decision transformed the town's story from pure tragedy into something more complex, a narrative about resilience and reinvention. The town adopted stringent green building codes, requiring all municipal buildings to achieve LEED Platinum certification, the highest level of environmental certification. Private residents were encouraged to build sustainably. Wind turbines were installed to generate renewable energy. The new high school, hospital, courthouse, and other public buildings incorporated cutting-edge sustainable design. Greensburg became a model for disaster recovery and environmental sustainability. Today, over 17 years later, Greensburg has stabilized at a population of around 750, about half its pre-tornado size. The town is physically smaller, but more modern and sustainable. Visitors can tour the green buildings and learn about the reconstruction. A tornado memorial in the town center honors the 11 victims and documents the town's destruction and rebirth. The Big Well, restored after the tornado, continues to attract tourists. Greensburg exists, functions, and has carved out a unique identity. But the memory of May 4th, 2007, remains vivid for survivors. The sound of the sirens, the roar of the tornado, the darkness and destruction, the loss of neighbors and friends, the sight of their town reduced to rubble. These memories do not fade, even as new buildings rise and life continues. Every spring when storm season returns, anxiety rises. Every tornado warning brings back that night. The trauma is permanent, even as the physical scars heal. In the broader history of tornadoes, Greensburg holds a unique place. It is the first EF5 tornado ever recorded, the tornado that inaugurated the new rating scale. It is a case study in both extreme tornado intensity and community resilience. It is a reminder that even small towns in relatively quiet parts of Tornado Alley can be hit by the worst nature can produce. And it is a testament to human determination that a town 95% destroyed can choose not just to survive, but to rebuild better than before. May 4th, 2007 taught Greensburg, Kansas, a lesson its survivors will never forget. When the sirens sound in the darkness, you take shelter immediately. EF5 tornadoes do not just happen in Oklahoma or Mississippi. They can strike anywhere. A town can be erased in minutes, but rebuilt through years of determination. Loss and resilience are not contradictory. They are two sides of the same story. 11 people died. A town was destroyed. And from the rubble emerged not just survival, but transformation. That is Greensburg's legacy, the first EF5, and the town that refused to disappear.